There we go. This is where I was traveling. So I was going from Prince Edward Island to Syracuse, okay? Look at how quick that is. Walking, it's only 325 hours. But if you go in a straight line, this is pretty close, you see? Yeah, Uncle YouTube drove there. Uncle YouTube did the drive. 14 hours. So yes, I flew from Prince Edward Island to Syracuse. So normally, if you could fly directly to Syracuse, it would be probably like 2.5 hour flight-ish. So I flew to Montreal. My first flight was delayed by 15 minutes, so I was waiting in the PEI airport for an extra 15 minutes. Boo-hoo. I was worried about making my connection from Montreal to Toronto, then Toronto to Chicago, then Chicago to Syracuse, because that's the only route possible for me. Anyway, I got on my first flight. We were about to take off, and then the flight stayed there for 2 extra hours, so I missed my first connection of 4. And so when I got to Montreal, I was, you know, classic flight fashion. I was like, well, I'm fucked now. I can't. Oh, I forgot to mention something important, by the way. We were sitting in the Prince Edward Island parking lot for airplanes, and they had the door open and staff were going in and out, like, because the door opened up to like a staircase that led to like the walkway. And I was like, can I just leave? Because I literally can't make, like, I have 4 connections to take and I cannot make any of them now. So I'm just going to be stuck in Montreal. And the door was open. People were freely walking in and out. And they're like, no, you have to sit back down. You have to take your flight to Montreal. And then you could book a flight back to Prince Edward Island and we could pay for it. So I had to sit there forced against my will to fly to Montreal. And then I was like, when I got there, I'm like, well, I could fly to Toronto and figure out something from there. Or I could just go back home and say fuck the vacation and the wedding, and I'll just go back home and stream or something. So anyway, my friend messaged me that's in the wedding as well, and he was like, oh, here, if you fly to Toronto, I could just pick you up by car, but I can only show up there at like 11 p.m. or 10:30 p.m. And I was like, oh, whatever. So I ended up buying a ticket from Montreal to Toronto. I told the people in Montreal, I was like, cancel my flights from Chicago to Syracuse, but keep my returning flight. Okay, I made that very clear. Keep my returning flights. Okay, like, yeah, no problem. I'll switch your next flight to Toronto. All right, you're good to go. So I went to Toronto, and when I got there, I had like 6 hours to kill. So I just went to the mall. I think it's called the what's it called? The Eaton Center. And I walked around the Eaton Center with my luggage. By the way, I had a massive backpack and a massive suitcase I was lugging around the whole time. So I was just walking around the mall in the pouring rain, mind you. It was okay. It was pretty fun. Then I went back to the Toronto airport. My friend picked me up with his car. My friend and his girlfriend, we'll call them Flabby and Autumn. Those are their names, Flabby and Autumn. So Flabby and Autumn took me all the way from Toronto by car at like 11 at night, all the way to Syracuse, okay? Right from there to there, you see? And they were laughing about my really bad luck. You know, I couldn't get off the flight. Then I got forced to Montreal. Then I had to get my own way to Toronto. So we got to Syracuse. My friend dropped me off at my hotel. And I was like, all right, awesome. What else can go? Like, nothing can go wrong at this point, right? I'm just kidding. I have the opposite mentality. He was sitting in the parking lot. I'm like, please wait for me. With my luck, I'm not even going to be able to get into my hotel. So this was at like 2:30 a.m. We pulled up to the hotel. So I walk in and the fucking dude is standing there. One guy is standing there and there's a red flag instantly. His name tag was upside down. So I was just like, oh, here we go. This ought to be good. And I'm like, hey man, I am late for my check-in. I have a room booked here for 4 days. Could you just look me up? My name is Lucas, yada, yada, yada. And he looks at this one piece of paper. He's like, is this you? Even though I already told him my name. And it was like, I don't know what the hell it was like Mark, Johnny, Jonathan or some shit. And I'm like, no, that's not me. But I do have a room here. So could you please look at your system? So he sits there. He did the classic pretend I'm busy. He sat there just clicking with his mouse. Just like, I could tell he wasn't doing shit. And he looks at me, he's like, sorry, we're all booked up for the night. And I was like, well, I made a reservation. Like, reservations are for reserving the room. You make a reservation So when you get to your destination, your room is reserved. And he's like, oh, well, I'm sorry. Are you sure you made the reservation? Just wait. And so I showed him my phone and I showed him that I called the number. I called their hotel. I made the reservation. Like, it's right here. He's like, do you have a confirmation number? I'm like, no, I was never given one. So after legitimately 15 minutes of clicking around doing nothing, he was like, oh, wait, I was the one talking to you. You're under the wedding party of X and Y name, right? And I was like, yeah, that's me. Even though I already told him I was under that wedding party right when I got there. But he was like, oh, that was me you were talking to on the phone. I left a note to tell them to reserve you a room, but I guess they didn't do it. Like, what the hell is he talking about? Left a note for them to reserve me. Why didn't they just reserve the room in the first place when I was on the phone with them, when he's getting my credit card information and all this other shit? And on top of that, like, how do you, for the people that got there the next day, how do you not reserve the room? Like, you would think, all right, reservations. So you plop it on the front computer monitor with a piece of tape or anything. So I was like, okay, well, what do I do now? You know, I've had a long day, dude. Like, I really need a room. There's nowhere else to go. Syracuse is not a big city. And he's like, oh, let me see if there's any rooms available. This took like an hour, by the way. Let me see if there's any rooms available. More mindless clicking around. And then he's like, I'll be right back. So he went and looked for a room for me. And he came back. He's like, I got you a room. But then he's like, I'm not going to take your information down. And I'm not going to take your credit card information. I'm going to give you this key card. I'm new here, by the way. So I'm going to give you this card. And your room is this room, like room 22 or whatever. So he gives me a card to a room that I didn't pay for and no one paid for. And he says, so yeah, he's super nervous. And he's like jittery. His name tag's upside down. And he's like, okay, so you could stay in this room. And I was like, all right, awesome. Thank you so much, dude. I'll take the key card back as soon as possible in the morning. And he's like, oh no, wait. Please don't take the key card back. And don't go by the front desk in the morning. And I'm like, wait, what do you mean? He's like, well, I'm not supposed to give you this room and you're not in our system. So I was like, well, at this point, I already went through all this shit. I was sitting in the airport for 2 hours at PEI. Then I was stuck in Montreal. Then I had to book a janky flight to Toronto. Then I had to hang there. And then, you know, I've been through a lot already. So I was like, all right, cool, fine. So then I got into my room and I didn't sleep. I can't sleep peacefully on the best of days. And this guy gives me this like basically stolen room. So I slept like an hour on and off. And then what I was worried about, what I was terrified for is finally at like 8 a.m. I hear a maid knock on my door and I'm like, oh shit, here we go. It's time. Like one of us is in deep trouble. Or, well, he is. I'm not in deep trouble, and I can lie my way out of that shit, no problem. I used to lie all the time in high school. I'm an expert at it. I don't like lying anymore because it got me into a lot of trouble when I was a kid. Like that guy, I got bad vibes. I was like, dude, he should not do that. He should just own up and be like, you can't have a room. But hey, I'll take what I can get. Anyway, the girl knocks on the door. And I'm just like, she's like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. She was like super apologizing. She's like, I'm so sorry. I didn't know you were in here. She didn't even walk in. She just knocked on the door and I answered the door. And I was like, yeah, I don't want any room service. And she said, oh, they told me you checked out already. The system says that you checked out. And she was furious. She was actually furious with the front desk. She's like, they told me you checked out. She's like, I'm so sorry. Because it's like this fine, it's like this high class, like little inn. It's only a 2-story little place. I was just calling it a hotel because they're all the same shit. So she's like up in arms. So she goes back to the front desk and I'm just like, well, what the fuck do I do now? So I just tried to go back to sleep. Didn't happen. And then 11 a.m. comes along and some other person comes to my door and she was like, oh, you have to check out. You had to check out 10 minutes ago. I'm like, oh shit, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to. So I can't check out because I'm not checked in. The guy gave me a stolen room. So I was like, well, I was talking to myself at this point because I'm not like I'm gonna be talking to anyone at the freaking place. I was like, well, I can't go to the front desk and they're gonna bust me on my way out. So I left my hotel room and I went just the wrong way over and over and I found a back exit without one of those fire alarms. So I went out the back exit. I called a Uber and I went to, oh, forgot to mention, when I was trying to sleep in that little inn, I booked a new hotel because what else can I do? I also forgot to mention every other night was booked that I was supposed to be there fully solid. So my reservation got me nothing except that stolen room. So I had to leave and find somewhere else when I woke up. So I got up, I went to my new hotel, and I got there and I said, oh, finally, I can drop my stuff off, finally be rid of all this bullshit and start my vacation. And then she's like, oh, sorry, check-in's at 3. It's 11 a.m. And I'm just like, oh, okay. So I sat there for a while and I was just trying to get into a room. I'm like, there's gotta be something, like you gotta get me into a room. So after diddling around, she's like, oh, sorry, I can't find anything. And then this janitor, or one of the maids comes by. She's like, wink, if you download our app, we can get you in early. I'm not gonna tell the story of trying to get into that goddamn forsaken app in my ancient account for, like, what the hell's the hotel, the Hills, the Hampton Inn. It took forever. So anyways, I finally got into my account. I got into a room at like 2 instead of 3. And then I went to the wedding. It was really fun. I went to the reception. It was really fun. Yeah, no complaints about the actual trip. It went really well. I met a lot of old internet friends, a lot of memories, a lot of cool pictures. I got to wear a nice suit and tie. It was fun. And then Monday. So I was supposed to stream on Tuesday. What is it, Wednesday? I was supposed to stream on Tuesday. So Monday morning comes. All right, time to go home. And I'm thinking to myself, man, can't wait to get to the airport and hopefully have just a normal flight back. So I get to the airport, same thing, by the way, Syracuse to Prince Edward Island. I go up to the guy, I say, can I print my boarding passes off? He takes my passport and he's like, you don't have any flights. I was like, what do you mean I don't have any flights? So he sits there on the, thank God this guy stuck with me. I said, I was just checking my flights before I left. I just checked in. Like, I have it right here. Like, these are my flights. Look. He's like, I see that, sir, but you're not in the system. And I know what happened. I was with Air Canada going to Syracuse, and I was with United going home. And Air Canada must have not got the memo that I was still going home by plane, and they just unbooked all of my United flights, which that in itself is like free money for me. Because that's like a royal fuck up from Air Canada. Anyway, so he's like, all right, so instead of taking you to Chicago and then flying from Chicago to Toronto and then Toronto to Prince Edward Island, we're gonna fly you to New Jersey, from New Jersey to Toronto to Prince Edward Island. And you're still gonna make your connection and it's gonna be fine. You have a little less time, but you're gonna be fine. So it's like, oh, okay, fine, I'll take it, fuck it. Like, who cares, I'm getting there at the same time anyway. So I get to Chicago. I forget, did anything happen with the Syracuse flight? I think it was just delayed by like 15 minutes. So I get to Chicago, or not Chicago, I get to New Jersey. And then when I landed in New Jersey, I got a text and it's like, your flight to Prince Edward Island has been delayed by 6 hours. I was like, oh my God, are you fucking kidding me? Now, when I get to Toronto, I'm gonna have to legitimately wait 8 hours. I had a 2-hour layover in Toronto already. So now I'm gonna have to wait 8 hours for my flight in Prince Edward Island. I'm gonna have to sit in Toronto and wait 8 hours there. Like, god damn, that sucks. Yeah, you thought that sucked? The Chicago flight, dude. I have never been on a worse flight in my, or not Chicago, the New Jersey flight. I have never been on a worse flight in my entire life. So we get on the New Jersey plane. The plane sits there for 2 hours, says that we couldn't leave yet. We had to unboard because they didn't have enough fuel to make it to New Jersey, or to make it to Toronto from New Jersey. Then we onboard, we wait an hour, we reboard a new plane at a new gate. We all had to go to a new gate. We reboard this new plane. We sit in the parking lot again for another couple hours. Then someone is raging on the plane. Someone's going nuts. They want to get off. They're talking about getting thousands of dollars for this horrible flight. So then, because he requested, we had to go back to the gate and we had to get let off. And because he got let off, that means that all the staff were legally had to go home because they weren't allowed to go on another flight. So their workday was over. So then we had to get on a third plane in New Jersey. By the way, when I'm waiting to get on my third flight, there's this dude, French dude, ranting at me, going crazy. One of his best line was probably, "Now I know why people shoot up airports." I'm just like, bro, And I was laughing at everything he said, and he's like, this isn't fun. He had no humor at all. He's like, this is not funny. And I'm like, well, no, I don't think it's funny either, but like, this sucks ass. And I'm just thinking like, Jesus Christ, dude. So we finally get on the third plane. It's delayed for another hour as we sit there. No joke. We get to Toronto, and I tell the guy on the New Jersey flight, the flight attendants were amazing. I tell this guy, I'm like, please, can you put me at the front of the plane so I can leave and I could catch my PEI flight? By the way, remember that 8-hour layover? I have like 10 minutes to go through customs and then to get to my flight to Prince Edward Island. That 8-hour layover turned into like 10 minutes of hustle time. So also, I was one of the lucky winners to have my bag checked in with one of those green tags that waits for you at the exit of your flight. But newsflash, if that's ever happened to you, those checked bags are never waiting for you at the end of your flight. You are sitting there at the end of your flight waiting like 20 minutes for them because they never show up on time. But I got good news. When we parked, the people that were supposed to open our door and let us out didn't show up for an extra 20 minutes because they just weren't there. So my bag was waiting for me, but I had to wait an extra 20 minutes. So by the time the door opens, my flight to PEI is 5 minutes away. And I fucking sprinted. I sprinted from Toronto's one of the biggest airports in North America, by the way. I sprinted. It took me like 15 minutes. I got through customs, sprinted all. It was at the very end of one of the sections of the airport. So I get there after sprinting, and that 8-hour layover turned into a missed flight. I missed the entire flight. I talked to a guy at another check-in spot, and I had to book a flight 9 hours. No, sorry. It was 10 hours from that moment. So I missed the flight by 5 minutes, which is originally supposed to be an 8-hour layover. And then I had to spend the night at the Toronto airport waiting for my PEI flight. That wasn't too bad. I watched the new House of Dragon. I played some Halls of Torment. I was scrolling some Twitter. You know, walking around the airport. I got some A&W. I had my Steam Deck. Yep. You know, there's some other small things to mention about the story. But yeah, then 9 hours went by as I was almost falling asleep in my chair. Oh, I had some coffee. Yeah, I had 2 different coffees. I got some juice. Yeah, it wasn't too bad spending the night at an airport. I'd never done that before, but it's this really strange thing of like, looking around, everyone is, everyone's going through the same shit as you. Where did I sleep? I can't sleep under the best conditions. I did not sleep. I just slept yesterday night. So like, I stayed up from Monday 8 a.m. until Tuesday 9 p.m. So I was up for 37 hours. But yeah, it was, how was the trip? It was really fun. It was unforgettable. But I'm glad to be home finally.